Zerika moved slowly through the thick green forest of Telvarin. The air was wet and heavy. Strange sounds came from deep inside the jungle, clicks, growls, and hisses. But one sound was different. It was ... crunching, like something biting into bone. Zerika froze. She was not a soldier. She was a scout, trained to observe and report. She had seen many strange creatures on Telvarin. But this sound, it felt wrong. She turned on her body cam and climbed a small hill, careful not to make a sound. From the top, she looked down into a clearing. What she saw made her eyes go wide. There, in the middle of the clearing, sat a strange being. It was not tall like her kind. It had smooth skin, 2 arms, 2 legs, and no claws. Its face was round, with no fur. It looked ... weak. But what it was doing was not weak at all. It was sitting on the body of a Raganar, the most dangerous predator on Telvarin. A beast that even Telvarin soldiers feared. Its body was huge, covered in black scales, with long fangs and burning red eyes. The beast was dead. The creature no. The human was calmly cutting meat from the Raganar's neck with a small knife. Then it took a bite. It chewed slowly, like it had all the time in the world. Zrika almost gasped. She covered her mouth and backed up behind a tree. This is not possible, she whispered to herself. She tapped her communicator. Base command, this is Scout Zerika. I have spotted an unknown species, bipedal. Alone. It has killed and is eating a Raganar. The voice on the other end laughed. Scout Zerika, this is not funny. Come back to base. I'm not joking. Zerika whispered. I am uploading visual data now. She sent the video from her body cam. But the signal was weak. The forest messed with the transmission. She didn't know if the base received it. She looked again. The human was now drinking from a small bottle. It looked relaxed. Like this was just another day. Why is it not afraid? Zerika thought. Even our soldiers avoid the Raganar, but this human. It acts like it's the top of the food chain. Her heart beat faster. She needed to leave. She needed to return to base. But something kept her there. Curiosity, fear, maybe both. Then the human did something strange. It stopped eating. It tilted its head like it heard something. Zerika didn't move. She didn't breathe. The human stood up slowly. It looked around. Then it looked straight at her. Zrika, a single quotes as blood turned cold. Their eyes met. For a moment, time stopped. Then the human did something she didn't expect. It smiled. Not a kind smile. Not a happy smile. A quiet, knowing smile. Like it had known she was there all along. Zerika stepped back. A twig broke under her foot. The human took one step forward, but no more. She turned and ran. Branches slapped her face. Vines pulled at her arms. But she didn't stop. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but she didn't stop. She reached a large rock and hid behind it, panting. Was it chasing her? She looked back. No one, no sound. The forest was quiet again. Too quiet. She crept forward and looked through the trees. Clearing was empty. The Raganar's body was still there, but the human was gone. Zrika backed away. No. No. She turned on her scanner, trying to find life signs. Nothing. The human had disappeared like smoke. She checked her location. Her ship was 3 clicks away. She could make it. She started walking fast, quiet. But fast. Every sound in the forest made her jump. She finally reached her ship. It was hidden under tree roots and leaves. She unlocked it and climbed inside. The door closed behind her with a hiss. Safe. She let out a long breath. Then knock. Her heart almost stopped. Someone was knocking on the door. Knock. Knock. Slow. Calm. Like the person outside had all the time in the world. Zrika stepped back. Her hand went to the emergency blaster. She checked the monitor. Standing outside. The door was the same human. He smiled again and waved. Zerika stared, frozen in fear. He spoke. His voice came through the translator. "Hello," he said. "We should talk." Zerika stood frozen inside her small scout ship. Her hand gripped the emergency blaster, but her fingers were shaking. The monitor still showed the human outside. He waved again, like they were old friends. She didn't move. She didn't speak. The human tilted his head and slowly walked away, disappearing into the thick trees. Silence. Zrika waited a full minute, then opened a secret panel in her control deck. She pressed the emergency stealth launch. The ship rose silently into the air, cloaked from sensors. She set course, back to base. But something felt wrong. The ship moved forward for just a few seconds, then everything went black. All systems shut. Down. No power. She slammed her hand on the control screen. Restart. Emergency override. Nothing worked. A soft beep came from the back. She turned. The ship's rear door was open. That door was sealed just moments ago. It couldn't open without her command. Her throat went dry. She pointed her blaster at the door and stepped toward it. A whisper came from behind her. "You left too fast." She spun around. The human stood in the center of the control room. No weapon. No armor. Just calm eyes and that same quiet smile. How did you get in?" She stammered. "Doors are just puzzles," he said. "Your ship is old." He looked around like he was inside a museum. Zrika raised the blaster. "Stay back." The human didn't move. "You don't need that. I'm not your enemy." "You ate a Ragnar," she said, voice trembling. "I was hungry," he replied simply. She stared at him. That thing kills everything. It's the top predator." "Not anymore," he said. Zerika's hand shook, but she lowered the blaster a little. "What do you want?" she asked. The human walked over to the control panel and tapped it. Lights flickered. Power returned. "I want to explore," he said. "Learn, survive." Zerika couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You came here alone?" He nodded. "One-way trip." Earth was getting boring. "Earth?" she asked. "Your home planet?" "Yes," he said. "It's difficult. Hard place to live. Lots of dangerous creatures." Zerika looked at him confused. "Harder than the Ragnar?" The human smiled again. "On Earth, we have worse. And we survive." He stepped closer. "I've seen your forest. I want to see more. Show me the next predator." Zerika blinked. "You want me to take you deeper into the wild zone?" He nodded. "I want to meet your biggest monsters." She stared at him. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she turned and tapped her screen. "There's a place called the Crater of Claws. No one goes there. No one comes back." His eyes lit up. "Perfect." The ship's engines restarted. The stealth system returned online. Zerika locked the door, this time just in case. They flew in silence through the green mist of Talvaron's upper skies. Zerika couldn't stop watching him through the corner of her eye. He didn't blink much. Didn't fidget. He sat still like a hunting animal waiting for a signal. After 30 minutes, they reached the edge of the crater. From the air, it looked like a giant bowl, covered in scars, torn trees, and bones. Massive footprints circled the ground. Even the wind here sounded strange. Like it didn't want to enter, Zerika set the ship down on a ledge above the crater. "Are you sure?" she asked. He stood up. "I've never been more sure." He picked up a long stick, looked at it, then broke it in half. "Good enough," he said. Zerika opened the door. The human stepped out into the deadly crater, holding a stick. And wearing a smile, Zerika stayed inside the ship. Watching the sensors, she whispered to herself, "He's going to die." But something deep inside her wasn't so sure. Then, her sensor beeped. Something big was moving inside the crater, bigger than the Rog. NAR. She leaned forward. The human didn't run. He walked toward it. Calm. Slow. Like the predator should be afraid. Something about him was wrong, or maybe something about him was just very, very human, and that made him the most dangerous thing on the planet. Zerika didn't sleep that night. She sat inside her ship, eyes on the crater, hands tight around her scanner. She expected screams. She expected roars. She expected to see the human's body, broken, torn, or gone, but none of that happened. Night passed quietly. Too quietly. At sunrise, something moved near the edge. She looked through the window. It was him. The human walked out of the crater, alone, dirty, and smiling. His stick was gone. His hands were scratched. Blood stained his shirt, but it wasn't his. Behind him, deep inside the crater, massive footprints told the story. The beast was dead. And he was alive. He stopped outside the ship and waited. Zerika hesitated, then opened the door. "You're not real," she said. The human grinned. "I get that a lot." She stepped outside. The morning air smelled like ash and something sharp fear. "Maybe." She looked at his hands. "How did you kill it?" "I found its eyes," he said. "Everything big has a weak point." "That thing was huge," she whispered. "Size means nothing," he replied. "If you're faster." Zerika didn't know what to say. They sat on the ledge for a long while. Finally she asked, "What are you?" The human looked at her, then at the sky. "I'm from a planet called Earth," he said. "You ever heard of it?" She shook her head. He picked up a rock and tossed it off the cliff. "It's not a nice place. Lots of storms, poison things, cold places, hot places, things that bite, things that burn, things that hunt." "And your people live there?" "Yeah," he said. "We don't just live, we fight, we adapt, we win." Zerika looked at the wound on his shoulder. "Why come here?" "I was bored," he said. She stared at him. "You were bored? So you came to a death world?" "I wanted to see what your monsters look like," he said. I wasn't disappointed. Zerika leaned back on the rock. "My people study, we use tech. We avoid danger when we can," the human smiled. "That's smart. But sometimes danger finds you anyway." She looked at him. "You talk like a soldier." He shook his head. "I'm not, just human." Zerika couldn't understand it. No armor. No weapons. Just skin and bone, and yet he killed what their best hunters feared. She stood up. "I need to send a message to base. They won't believe this." The human nodded. "Let them watch, maybe they'll understand." She hesitated. "Understand what?" He looked her in the eyes. "That humans don't run." Later, inside the ship, she replayed the footage, grainy images of the human walking through the crater, facing the beast, dodging claws, stabbing with sharp stones, using fire, using his body like a weapon. She uploaded the file and sent it across the sky. It would take time to reach base. Until then, she was stuck with him. He didn't rest much. Didn't eat much either. Mostly he watched the jungle. Like he was waiting for something bigger. Zrika finally asked, "Why don't you fear anything?" He smiled again. That same calm, strange smile. "Where I come from," he said, "fear makes you slow. And slow means dead." That night, while she slept, he sat by the ship's open door, sharpening a piece of bone. She woke once and looked at him. He didn't notice, or maybe he did, but he didn't say anything. The next morning, he was gone. She ran to the window. No sign of him. Then she saw it, more footprints. Not just his, something else had been there during the night. Something big. She followed the trail. Heart pounding. It led her to a broken tree, snapped like a twig, and lying beside it, another predator. Dead. Clean kill. And beside it, on a flat stone, sat a small message, scratched in simple lines. "I'm still exploring." She touched the stone and smiled. Just a little. The human was still out there. And Talvarin would never be the same again. They called it the Crater of Claws. But the locals whispered another name. The pit that eats everything. Zerika had only seen it from above. Now she stood at the edge, watching dust swirl through the wind like smoke from an ancient fire. No one went down there. No one came back. The walls were covered in scratch marks, some shallow, some deep, like creatures had tried to escape. And failed. She turned to look at the human. He was tying a piece of cloth around his wrist. It wasn't armor. It wasn't even protection. Just cloth. His other hand held a sharpened piece of bone. "You don't need to do this," she said quietly. He didn't answer. A moment passed. Then he looked at her and said, "I'm not doing it for need." He walked toward the edge. She called after him. "What's down there is worse than anything you've seen." He didn't slow down. Good. He dropped into the crater without a sound. Zerika climbed to the top of her ship and watched. The jungle fell silent. Even the insects stopped chirping. For a full minute. Nothing moved. Then something did. The trees at the far end of the crater cracked. A shadow pushed through the brush, wide, low to the ground, but heavy. The ground trembled under its steps. Zerika's breath caught in her throat. She had read about this one. They called it the Maw-Claw. It had 3 jaws and one goal: to eat anything that moved, and now it was looking at the human. He stood still, not afraid, not even tense. He simply raised the bone blade and waited. The beast roared. The sound shook leaves from the trees and sent small animals running. But the human didn't run. He stepped forward. The beast charged. It was like watching a storm hit a stone. Zerika couldn't believe what she saw. The human ducked, rolled, stabbed. He used its weight against it. He ran up its back like it was a hill, then stabbed behind its eye. The beast howled and slammed into the crater wall. The human jumped clear, then grabbed a sharp root and swung back down, landing with both feet on the creature's face. Zerika had never seen anything like it. Even the beast looked confused, as if it didn't understand how prey had become predator. 10 minutes passed. The ground turned red. The human stood alone. The Maw-Claw was dead. He didn't cheer. He didn't shout. He just sat down beside it and pulled a small snack from his belt. Zerika was still shaking when she recorded the footage. She sent it again, this time on an emergency band with a priority code. Others had to see this. They had to know what this human was. She didn't realize the signal was being watched thousands of kilometers away in a cold metal station orbiting the planet. Someone else stared at the same footage. A tall figure with silver armor and sharp eyes. He rewound the video. Watched it again. Then again, and again. The room was silent, except for the hum of the screen. He turned to his second in command. "Where did this creature come from?" he asked. "Unknown world. Unregistered species. Possibly Earth." The armored figure narrowed his eyes. "I want him, alive." His second nodded. "We'll send the hunters." Down on Talvarin, Zerika felt something change in the air. She didn't know why, but she looked at the human as he returned to the ship. He had blood on his hands, and eyes that saw too much. Something was coming. She could feel it, and she wasn't sure who the real monsters were anymore. The sky above Talvarin was no longer calm. Zerika didn't notice at first. She was too focused on the human, who sat cross-legged outside the ship, humming softly as he sharpened a jagged stone. But something felt wrong. The wind had changed. The birds were gone. The jungle was too quiet. Then the scanner beeped. Not once, not twice, dozens of times. Zerika's eyes widened. Multiple life signs, fast, moving in a wide circle. She turned to the human. "We have company." He didn't look up. "I know. You knew?" she said. He nodded. "They've been tracking me for 2 days." "Why didn't you say anything?" He smiled. Didn't want to ruin the surprise. Before she could ask more, the trees exploded. Energy nets flew through the air. Zerika ducked, rolled, and hit the ground hard. She looked up and saw figures in gray armor dropping from the trees like shadows. Elite hunters. Her people's best. But they weren't here for her. They surrounded the human, weapons raised. He stood up slowly, hands open. Calm. As ever, a tall hunter stepped forward. His voice was cold through the mask. You will come with us. The human tilted his head. Why? The hunter didn't answer. The net fired. The human jumped sideways, kicked off a tree, spun midair, and landed behind the nearest hunter. One strike. The hunter dropped. The others opened fire, but they weren't fast enough. The human moved like smoke, hard to see, harder to hit. He didn't use blasters. He didn't need to. He grabbed weapons from fallen hunters and turned them against their own. Zerika had seen beasts fight. She had never seen this. He didn't just fight to win. He fought like he enjoyed it, like it was a dance. More hunters came. 20, then 30. One grabbed Zerika. She kicked and screamed, but they held her. Stop! The commander shouted. We have the female. The human froze. His eyes locked onto Zrika. Something changed in his face. The calm was gone. Now, there was fire. He dropped the stolen blaster and raised his hands. I'll go, he said. Zerika shook her head. No, don't. He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw fear. Not for himself. For her. They chained him. They stunned him. They dragged him away. Zerika tried to fight, but they hit her hard. Her world went black. When she woke, she was in a metal room. Cold. Bright. Too clean. She heard voices outside the wall. Subject is from Earth. Shows extreme physical ability. Must be studied. She stood and banged on the door. Let me out. A voice answered. Calm, deep and cruel. You are not the one we want. The door opened. And there he was. The warlord from orbit. Silver armor. Eyes like knives. He looked at her with no interest. Then turned to a screen behind him. On it, the human was in a cage, still. Silent. Watching. The warlord spoke. You don't understand what you found, Scout. That creature is not just a hunter. He is a weapon. He's not a weapon, Zerika said. He's a man. The warlord smiled. Soon he will be ours. Zerika stared at the screen. The human looked up, right at the camera, right at her. And smiled. The cell was cold. But the human didn't seem to notice. He sat cross-legged on the floor, breathing slowly, like he was meditating. Around him, invisible walls buzzed with energy. One wrong move and they would cook him from the inside out. At least, that's what they thought. Outside the glass, the warlord watched him from behind a large screen. Scientists whispered in corners. Soldiers stood with their fingers on triggers. They all waited for him to move. But he did single quotes not for hours. Then, without warning, he opened his eyes. He looked up at the wall and smiled. The warlord narrowed his eyes. Begin. The lights dimmed. A voice came from a speaker inside the cell. Cold, robotic, stake your species. The human looked at the camera. Human, stake your origin. Earth, stake your purpose on Telvaren. I wanted to see what your monsters looked like. Zerika sat in a chair in the next room, arms tied behind her back. She tried to speak, but her mouth was covered. She could only watch. The warlord stepped closer to the screen. You came alone. You brought no weapons. You killed apex beasts with your bare hands. That is not normal. The human stood up. He stretched his arms like he had just woken from a nap. I never said I was normal, he said. The warlord frowned. Explain your strength, your speed, your resistance to pain. The human shrugged. Earth trains us. Life trains us. The warlord slammed his fist on the table. Enough dames. What is Earth? The room went silent. The human stepped forward. The glass buzzed louder, warning him to stay back. He didn't stop. He pressed his hand against it. It burned his skin. He didn't flinch. He leaned in, his voice quiet and sharp. Earth is not a world. It's a test. They stared at him. No soft lands, no safe zones. We grow up surrounded by storms, sickness, and teeth. Everything wants to kill you, and if it doesn't, the cold, the heat, or your own kind will try. He smiled again. Pain is the first thing we learn. Survival is the second. Killing comes after that. Zerika's heart pounded. The warlord said nothing. The human kept speaking. You think I'm dangerous? I'm not. I'm just early. What do you mean? The warlord asked. The human turned and sat down again. You've seen one of us. Wait until you see 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 10 billion. The warlord scoffed. Empty threats. The lights flickered. A siren beeped once. Then again. The technician at the panel blinked. Oh, warlord, we have an incoming signal. From where? The technician hesitated. Earth. Everyone froze. The warlord stepped back. Zerika's eyes widened. The message was short. A single voice. Gravelly. Calm. Male. We know you have one of ours. Let him go. This is your only warning. Then silence. The warlord barked. Trace it. Trying. But it bounced through 20 systems. Maybe more. Inside the cell, the human laughed. The warlord turned to Zerika. What else do you know about his kind? She took off her mouth cover herself, teeth clenched. You don't understand what you're dealing with. That man ate your apex predator for lunch. The warlord growled. And that is why he must remain here, studied, controlled. He walked out, his guards behind him. Zerika stared at the screen. The human looked at her through the camera again. He raised one eyebrow. Then winked. The doors to the grand arena opened with a roar of metal. Dust rose into the sky like smoke. The stands were full, thousands of alien eyes watching. Soldiers, scientists, leaders, all curious, all afraid. The human was no longer a secret. He was a show. And this was supposed to be his end. He stepped into the arena barefoot, shirt torn, hands chained, but his back was straight and his eyes calm. He looked around slowly, taking it all in. The crowd was silent. They were expecting fear. Instead, they got a quiet smile. Above the arena, the warlord stood behind glass, watching. He raised one hand. Release the beast. The gates on the far side creaked open. The ground shook. Something massive stepped forward. Twice the size of the Rodiner, skin like iron, teeth like swords. Its roar broke the silence like thunder. But the human didn't move. The chains fell off. Zrika, hidden in the crowd below, had hacked the lock seconds before. The human rolled his shoulders and cracked his knuckles. The beast charged. The arena shook. Zrika couldn't breathe. And then he ran, not away. Toward it, he didn't dodge. He leapt. Straight into its jaws. The crowd screamed. The warlord leaned forward. A moment passed. Then another. And then the beast screamed. Its mouth opened wide. The human dropped out, covered in black blood. He landed hard, rolled, grabbed a sharp scale from the beast's side, and drove it deep into its neck. Once. Twice. Again. The beast collapsed. Dead. The arena was silent again, until the human stood up, bleeding, breathing hard but alive. He turned to the crowd, lifted his arms, and shouted. Just one word. More? No one answered. No one moved. Even the warlord stepped back from the glass. The human laughed. Didn't think so. He walked toward the arena gate like it was just another day. Zerika met him near the exit. Her voice was low. That's signal. From Earth. They're coming, aren't they? He looked at her. Not an army, not yet. Just explorers. Explorers? He nodded. People like me, curious, hungry, hard to kill. She looked up at the silent stands. They'll be scared. They should be, he said. Because I'm the nice one. She raised an eyebrow. That was nice? The human laughed again. You should meet my sister. Behind them, the warlord sent out a message across the stars. A warning to others. A lie. Maybe. Or maybe a cry for help. But the message was clear. Do not approach Earth. Do not anger humans. Do not bring attention to your world. Because now they knew, Telvarin was no longer the wildest place in the galaxy. That title belonged to Earth, and the apex predator wasn't a beast. It was human.